and your demos for Rockett pedals.
Oh, cool.
And I really like those demos.
Thank you.
And then I dove into the Snarky Puppy material, which is great.
Thanks.
And I love your guitar sound, so I thought, well, while you were going to Amsterdam, I thought you were going to play with them in Paradiso.
I know, man. I wish. You know, it's like we have such a large band, and we spend so much time on the road that we tend to like shuffle players in and out. So this is actually like my month off.
Okay. Okay.
So, yeah, but I'll be playing North Sea in the summer.
Okay, I'll see you there.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
That'll be great. Yeah.
So I was listening to your solo record.
Cool.
Also, they're great.
Thank you.
I was amazed I hadn't heard it before because I'm a real guitar freak.
Oh, cool.
I'm really into the Scott Henderson stuff, and I heard some Jeff Beck in there.
Yeah, absolutely. He's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Totally.
Your stuff with your whammy bar.
Yeah, I pretty much stole that from him, and Michael Landau is another one of my favorite players who, you know, they use the tremolo bar like that. So, yeah, man.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, that's great. I also reminded me somehow your sound of Alan Hinds.
You know, I've heard that. Alan's a great player. I'm not too familiar with his stuff outside of a few YouTube videos that I've seen, but from what I've heard, he's really amazing, man.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Thank you. Yeah.
So your solo CD, that's called Future Fun.
Yeah, that was the second one, actually. I have two.
Mm-hmm. No, this is the first one?
Yeah, that was the first one, yeah. But yeah, so I put it out, I think I put it out, when did I put it out? Oh my goodness. It was just this past fall it came out, I think, in October.
Mm-hmm. 2013. Yeah. Yeah,
2013, yeah. And it's been really well received, you know. A lot of the people that were kind of, you know, that were turned on to Snarky Puppy are checking out, you know, the individual players and seeing what their individual projects are like. So I've definitely kind of been able to, you know, use some of the exposure from Snarky Puppy to get people interested in what my solo project is. And I got a great band here in Texas. It's two of the guys that played on the CD, Jason Thomas and Braylon Lacey, and we play as a trio as much as we can, which is kind of hard because we all tour so much with different other groups. But hopefully, maybe next year we'll try and get overseas to Europe and maybe do some shows.
Okay.
So,
that
yeah,
would be great.
Okay.
So the CD, you have 7 songs on them?
It's really like 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it started out as an EP. It was really only supposed to be like 5 songs, but I kind of had this idea to take the end sort of section, the vamp of the 4th track, and then sort of split it up into 2 separate tracks that each were coming from the same place but had a slightly different sonic feel to each of them to kind of like bookend the EP as like an intro and an outro.
Yeah, it was kind of fun. All your songs, of quite a lot of your songs, are a mixture of heavy funk and rock, and sometimes really heavy rock with drop D tuning.
Yeah.
So
I mean, those are. I guess if I had to pick 2 genres that maybe influenced me the most, it would be, you know, hard rock, but then R&B and soul and funk. And I think my sound is kind of a mixture of those with a little bit of maybe a fusion jazz influence as far as some of the harmony is concerned. But I really kind of consider myself, you know, like a blues-based musician that can play groove and can kind of play rock and that kind of stuff. But yeah, like one of my favorite bands of all time is King's X. I don't know if you've heard of King's X. They're an American band, and it's a trio. They're from Texas, and they're just really, really heavy, but very, very melodic. And their sound has always kind of stuck with me in a way. So that I think every record I do is probably going to have a pretty heavy song on it, you know, okay. in a drop tuning of some sort, just because it's fun to play, and that kind of guitar sound really resonates with me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It sounded to me. I thought of Stevie Wonder finding a heavy metal guitar and playing his song.
That's a great way to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the harmonies. They're also soulful, and then you're with the funk bass, and then you're going into these deep metal sounds. It's
cool. I'm glad somebody's picking up on it.
Yeah, sure. Are you using a 7-string guitars on some of those tracks?
No, I tuned actually. That song was. It was this Les Paul, which is just a Les Paul standard. I think it's a 2002, and I put really heavy strings on it and tuned it down to B. And then on the record prior, I had that song Grill Man, which was actually this Strat that I put heavy strings on and tuned down to C.
Okay.
So, yeah, I've actually really only messed around with 7 strings like at guitar shops.
Yeah.
And it'd be nice to kind of take one home and sit with it and see what I could come up with.
But they confuse me.
I know, yeah. It's very, especially visually, I look at it and think that like the extra string just totally throws me off.
Yeah. But what type of pedals did you use on those heavy? That
was a Rockett Pedals Flex Drive. That I cranked pretty high up into this Naylor. It's a 60-watt dual channel amp. It's one of the greatest sounding amps I've ever come across. So most of that song was the Flex Drive into the Naylor, and then some of the rhythm guitar tracks were the overdrive channel on that same amp, which is like a big fat kind of Marshall JCM kind of style. But yeah, all the tracks on that record were done with the Naylor, a Fender Twin, and then a couple different Rockett pedals.
Okay.
A few of their overdrives and fuzzes and things like that.
Yeah, because you have a really warm, heavy sound in your soloing, and that's a wonderful sound, because some guitar players, especially, I won't name names, but they sound very thin and very, yeah.
Well, I like to set my amps not bright, but just a little bit of treble so where it cuts, and then I usually warm up the pedals quite a bit. So it just kind of creates a contrast. It's kind of like the opposite of what Jeff Beck does, where he turns the amps like very treble, like a whole bunch of treble in the amps, and then he rolls the guitar tone like just all the way off. So I guess it's kind of similar, but yeah, I've just sort of been doing that. It's just what sounds good in my head. So
okay. And your main guitar on most videos, I see a Fender-like Strat.
Yeah, in fact, that's in the other room. I will go get it. Hang on just a second.
Okay.
So yeah, this has kind of been the main axe. I actually got this when I was 16.
Okay.
And it's kind of gone through not a whole lot of changes. I change out the pickups. These are DiMarzios, 2 61s and a chopper here, and then I just put these locking tuners on the back of the headstock. But I kind of I have a setup guy in town in Texas that does a really good job. And then I kind of like tweak the tremolo to my liking, and it actually stays in tune really pretty good. It's a pretty even sounding guitar. Like it's punchy and it's present, but it's not like overly treble-y or overly bass heavy or anything. So it's just a good all around guitar. It weighs a ton because it's northern hard ash. It's not smooth ash.
It looks kind of heavy.
Yeah, people think it's small patch until they pick it up, and it weighs. I mean, it weighs about as probably actually more than my Les Paul does.
Okay.
It's a very heavy guitar.
Oh my.
So, yeah.
I like the lightweight guitars. See?
Yeah. Oh yeah, is it a PRS?
Yeah, the hollow body.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, man.
That's a
Yeah,
great
those are
guitar.
great instruments.
So I like the lightweight.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Because when you're on tour and you have to do this every night, it's kind of heavy on your...
It can get difficult, especially... I don't notice as much on Snarky Puppy gigs because I tend to move around a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But on like when I tour with Erykah Badu, I don't really have a lot of room to move around.
Mm.
And her sets are very long, and so I usually bring a lighter guitar. But yeah, I'm having a new guitar built by Don Grosh.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Swamp Ash Stratocaster, but very lightweight. So that one will I'll be taking that one on tour.
Okay.
A bit when it comes in the mail. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got some great guitars.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, and because a lot of your music is very virtuoso, very virtuosic. How do you say it?
Thanks.
It's quite a lot of riffs with chords and stuff, yeah. Jazzy chords, and so that's kind of hard to play. And then with the heavy guitar, so I was thinking, how can you keep up?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just, like I said, I had that guitar when I was 16, so I've just been doing it for so long that, I'm just kind of used to the way that guitar feels and the way I'm able to carry myself on stage with it. I just have gotten used to it, I guess. You spending some time in the gym getting your abs tight, you get a little core, you can support that thing, but yeah, man.
Okay. When I look at the Snarky Puppy videos, you see all the musicians, and I hardly see any sheet music.
Yeah, that's true.
How do you do it?
We actually stopped using sheet music several years ago. I think the last album that there were actually charts was back in 2008, I think. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that was just we kind of figured out that if we were just learning parts by ear, then it was a little bit easier to really internalize the part and then, play it expressively the way you would play it as if you had played it forever rather than just like reading it. Because I feel like sometimes when you read things, your brain gets stuck on the reading part of it and not really the expressive part of it, which is great for me because I'm a really, really poor reader. So what we've been doing is that whoever writes the song will make a demo on some recording, program on Pro Tools or something. And, most of the guys in the band play more than one instrument, so they'll program like maybe a keyboard part or a guitar part or a bass part or something. And then these demos get sent out, and we just kind of learn them by ear. Mm. And then when we get together to rehearse before the recording, we'll kind of like just sort of like flesh out who is to play what. Because the cool thing about sending a demo is that everybody ends up learning every part. So like instead of having a sheet music that says guitars play this,
mm-hmm.
If you heard the song, you'd learn the chords, you'd learn the melody, you'd learn the bass line, just because you'd have to know the whole song. Rather than like having a piece of sheet music that says, okay, you're only going to play these chords. So that's cool because when we get to then figure out the parts, it's like, okay, well maybe this melody sounds better on a trumpet than it does on a keyboard. Okay. Or maybe the guitar should be playing the chords rather than the keyboard or whatever. And then everybody already knows those parts because we've all just learned everything by ear. So it's worked out really well for us, I think.
Yeah, because it sounds very organic.
Right. Yeah, that's the whole point. Yeah, we don't want it to sound like, we kind of don't want it to sound rehearsed, okay. To be honest.
But it takes a lot of preparation and doing it that way. Yeah.
I mean, the rehearsals in the week or whatever it is leading up to when we do a recording are very intense. Mm-hmm. They're long days and whatever, but there's still an element of surprise involved in how we, execute the final product.
Okay. So until the recording is finished, nobody really knows what's going to happen.
I mean, yeah, it's like, everybody will have an idea of what they thought was the best take. But then it's always a surprise when we get the CD and it's like, oh, that was the one that we used. Michael, the band leader, is ultimately responsible for figuring out which one we're going to use. So, it's interesting because, you might have a take where you thought you played a really great solo, but if the rest of the band wasn't really on it, you kind of have to sacrifice that sort of thing for the greater good of the whole song. So we never know which take is going to get picked until we actually get the final product.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you divide the parts?
Well, kind of going back to what I said, usually when we get in to do a rehearsal, everybody has heard at least this demo. So we all have a pretty good idea of what is going to be needed of us to do. So usually when the 3 guitar players will get together, we'll be like, okay, well, there was this melody here. Why don't you do that while this other guy is playing these chords? And then sometimes, you definitely have to kind of play a lot less than you normally would on a gig, especially in a quartet or something like that. But, so there are times when maybe only 1 guitar player is playing or 2 guitar players or something, and then if all 3 of us are playing, it's very arranged. Like, we're not improvising like that. Like, it's like, okay, this is exactly what you're doing, these are the exact voicings. Kind of thing. So it's actually very structured. And I think, when songs get written and the guitar parts get divvied up, there's usually certain parts that play to different players' strengths. So if you listen to each individual guitar player, you can kind of figure out, what those are, or what, kind of sounds that each guy is more familiar with or more comfortable doing. So I think that's kind of how we're able to stay out of each other's way.
Okay, so one guy is more a Led Zeppelin type of.
I mean, we definitely overlap because we kind of all grew up listening to a lot of the same things. But Bob Lanzetti is very interested in soundscapes and reverbs and delays and that kind of thing. And so a lot of those sort of sounds are designated to him. Chris has a very strong straight ahead jazz background. So he gets a lot of the crazy melodies.
Okay.
And then I sort of have like a funk rhythm sound, so I end up doing a lot of that sort of like funk, soul, gospel type of comping and stuff like that. And then everybody solos in their own special language. So
yeah. And your pedal boards differ also?
Yeah, they do.
So I have a Rockett pedal, and you can't have a Rockett pedal for this recording?
I'm trying to get everybody to do Rockett pedals, but they're lazy. I don't know. Some of the other guys, one of the other guys is a Pigtronics artist, so I can't necessarily poach from him,
Okay.
My pedal board is definitely the most organized. The other guys are all... Well, Chris doesn't even have one. He just throws everything out on the ground and hopes that nobody kicks it over. And then Bob's is slowly coming together. But I think they're all kind of... each of us have sort of similar sounds, but definitely like different brands of company. Like, I don't think any of us use the same delay pedal, and I don't think any of us actually use the same overdrive. Or wahs. I think it's funny. I think we all use different, almost completely different brands from one another, even though it's like the same type of sound. So, but even then, I mean, it's like, if I were to plug into Bob's rig, I would still sound like myself. I'm not going to sound like Bob. No. That's the main thing.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And different amps too?
It depends.
Can you use the Naylor?
Sorry?
Can you use the Naylor?
I do when I'm in town. When the band comes through Texas, I do. I have this Naylor that I really like, and then I have another amp by this company called Pure 64, which I just got. And then hopefully I can start getting some road cases designed for these things so I can take them out on tour. But usually, when we're overseas in Europe, we have backline, and so it's usually a Fender Twin or a Fender DeVille, some sort of standard Fender tube amp.
Yeah.
And then when we're at home, and we have access to our own personal rigs. Like Bob plays a Victoria that he really likes. Chris has some old Fender, I don't know what the heck it is, brown and old and beat to hell. So, yeah. So.
Okay. So when you were in Holland last time, you checked out the Lex Boss?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Actually, I was just recording with it the other day, so it's right here. And it's a big old honking, gigantic thing. It's the size of my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got to meet with Lex, and we went to this really cool little studio and just kind of shredded guitars for a little while. And yeah, it's a fantastic piece of machinery.
Your influences were, of course, Beck and Henderson and people like that. But what about your musical education? Where did you go to?
Well, I actually am kind of one members of Snarky Puppy that does not have a music degree.
Okay.
I did not go to school for music. I went to school to study advertising and public relations business.
Okay.
So that was kind of my official education. But I started playing guitar when I was 11 and had a couple of really great teachers, like in high school. And I did study with the jazz professor at my university for about a year and a half. So I guess I would say I'm self-taught, but I did have a couple private teachers along the way. But yeah, no school music education, really.
Okay.
I played in the high school jazz band for about a year, which was fun. But, most of the learning that I ended up doing, I think, was just kind of on my own, playing along to CDs that I liked and transcribing players that really, inspired me. And then always playing in a band. Like I started my first band shortly after I started playing guitar. And I think so much of my learning experience has just been being in jam sessions and rehearsals with guys that were just way better than me.
Okay.
I think you learn so much from just playing with other people as you would from a textbook or a teacher or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the DVDs, or like the Scott Henderson DVD or the Schofield DVDs, did you study them?
I didn't have any DVDs. I kind of like... I'm 30 years old, so I grew up, like, my formative teenage years were before YouTube and right before DVD players, actually.
Okay.
But yeah, so I didn't really... I learned everything by ear, like from CDs, and tablature, too. I remember downloading loads and loads of tab off the internet when I was a kid. But lately I have been getting on YouTube and checking out some of those DVDs, because now people you don't even need the DVD. You just go on YouTube and the whole DVD's right there.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So I browse all of them, man.
Yeah.
I've looked at the Robin Ford one like 100 times. Paul Gilbert's got some really cool ones up there, and yeah, Scott Henderson. There's all kinds.
Yeah.
So I'm discovering all of that late, I guess. So. I always tell people my three probably biggest influences on the instrument are Jeff Beck, Edward Van Halen, and Prince. And the reason is because I love how expressive Jeff is from a melodic standpoint.
Yeah.
I love the energy that Eddie has, especially from a rhythm guitar standpoint. And then I love Prince's writing, his arranging, and I love the way he plays funk rhythm guitar. He's the best funk rhythm guitar player to me ever. So I think I always kind of go back to those three guys if ever I'm in need of inspiration and can't seem to find it. I always just sort of turn to those three guys.
Okay. And I read somewhere that Joe Satriani was.
Yeah, he was probably like my first guitar hero after Jimi Hendrix.
Okay.
And actually, my teacher in high school, when I was, I guess, from about 14 to 17, I studied with this guy who was a student of Joe Satriani's back in the 80s when Joe Satriani taught before he was Joe Satriani.
Okay.
And so that was really cool. Yeah, I was like obsessed with Joe Satriani, try and play all of his tunes. And I think for me, that was kind of what brought me into instrumental guitar music, because it was like, oh man, I don't have to listen to the words; it's just guitar solos. So I got really excited about that.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, the guy, he writes really cool pop songs.
Yeah.
I don't think my music necessarily sounds like his, but definitely the way that he approaches composition from a pop standpoint is something that I try to do as well.
Well, the variations he puts into his melodies, the way he approaches his melodies from different angles.
Cynical stuff too, which is why I think he's accessible to people that aren't necessarily guitar players.
So I want to thank you for the interview.
Absolutely, and sorry for the delay, man. I'm usually way more on time.
Oh no problem. No problem.
Cool. I appreciate you taking the time to talk. This was really cool.
Okay.
Great. All right, Jan. Good to talk to you.
Bye.
Take care.